We perceive things based on a lot of stuff. So we've got 11 million bits of data that is coming through into our brain. And our brain has to filter that information and then decide what to do with it. And there's some things that will play into what it uses and what we focus on. And a lot of that has to do with our feelings.
Welcome to the 24K Life Podcast, the place where your journey to golden life begins. I'm your host, Derick, Gant, advisor, coach, and your resource to achieving something greater than you already have. Each week, we dive into strategies that help you transform ordinary into extraordinary. You know, the 24K Life is all about self-mastery, overcoming our impurities, our faults, our pain points, and going through the purification process of fire and rising a new flame of excellence. Whether you're listening on your morning commute, during a morning workout, during a workout, or as you wind down your day, you're about to discover some insights that will empower you to break through the barriers, create abundant success, and fulfill your life's purpose. So let's get inspired, let's get motivated, and let's turn your dreams into achievable steps. You know what? I'm ready. Let's crack the code. Today, we have an amazing guest. We have already been giggling, laughing, and solving the world's bathroom problems. Kim, how are you? Kim Korte, how are you, Kim?
I'm fantastic, Derick. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
You're welcome. I told you we were going to have fun. I mean, I got you giggling on the introduction, so I'm doing great.
Yes.
Kim, you are an emotion management strategist. I have no professional idea what that really means. I have a spiritual idea. I have a worldly idea. I don't have a professional idea. So why don't you introduce your expertise to the world?
The full title is a sensory perception and emotion management strategist, because the whole idea of our perceptions and the power that and the role that they play in our emotions, when you combine the two, then you can come up for strategies. And I like strategies better because it's really frameworking it to one person. So I'm not like the person who goes in and coaches and like you do. I just am laser focused on, okay, how can we get you to recognize your emotions, to be more resilient, and to pivot from difficult situations, to manage your stress. And it's in my book, but it's not really like anything above and beyond that. So I'm just really laser focused on that one thing, getting you more comfortable and connecting to the one sensory system that tells you how you are feeling, that we often learn to ignore.
So, I mean, you said so much there, and I'm like curious, George. That's why when we did our little pre-talk, I told you I don't want to ask too many questions because I'm like curious, George, man. I got questions. So,
Hey.
So I'm gonna write this down. One sensory, because that's a different question. All right, here's my question.
Okay. I'm ready.
Perceptions, right? I used to say, perception is reality, and everybody's perception is different, meaning everybody has a different reality, which is probably true. But our perception's truth, where do we get so, the world is so, I shouldn't say the world, America, so discombobulated with these alternative facts and perceptions of truth. Tell me, like, what you're saying we should be focusing on when it comes to our perceptions.
We perceive things based on a lot of stuff. So we've got 11 million bits of data that is coming through into our brain. And our brain has to filter that information and then decide what to do with it. And there's some things that will play into what it uses and what we focus on. And a lot of that has to do with our feelings. If we have fear, what are we going to focus on? What we think is our source of fear. If we feel a certain way about a person or a situation, a thing, a topic, we're going to focus on particular things that are said based on our feelings. And where do our feelings come from? That's the key for me, is that our feelings come from our memories, our beliefs, our experiences, what we've learned, and they're all the same thing. It's just a different way of saying it. It's the experiences that we've encoded in our brain. Mm-hmm. It's that what they call wiring, but I call recipes. So that when the brain gets this information in, it's looking at our past experiences. It's looking at what we find important. It's what we think we need to focus on based on how we've behaved previously to predict what we see, what we hear, what we smell, and also how we feel. So perceptions are ingredients. And when we understand that, then, okay, how can I take in more ingredients? Or how can I examine what my current recipes are so that I can, feel differently or look at this situation more objectively? Because we're always living in the present and the future based on the past.
Right. I agree with that 1,000%. It's very crystal clear. I'm still confused, but not about what you said. The whole time you're talking, I'm a guy, so I'm listening, but I'm also thinking, which means that I'm not 100% listening. And here's what I was thinking. I'm just truthful. We are terrible sometimes. Actually, I'm a really good listener, but
that's not a man thing, by the way. That's a human thing.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. Just so you know.
We'll fix that. So here's what I'm wondering, like, as you're talking. We got 8 billion people in the world with 8 billion perceptions per thing that you mentioned.
Yep.
And I'm trying to figure out, because that's the truth. And I said, I agree with everything that you said. How are we ever going to get along? I mean, how are we ever going to get on a bigger page? And I'm not expecting you to answer that. I'm just saying that
I have an answer.
Oh my Lord, I knew I liked you. Go ahead. Go for it.
By understanding that your world that you experience is in your head, right? Mm-hmm. When your ego can say, how I see the world is mine and mine alone, because we don't see with our eyes. We take in perceptive data. We see with our brain. We don't hear with our ears. We take in signals through our ears. We hear with our brain. Go on and on and on. We feel with our brain. So when we understand that the recipe, or whatever the belief, I like recipe because it kind of covers all the bases, mm-hmm. that our recipe was based on how we were feeling, what we were focused on in the past. And we might have missed something. And that something that we missed might be really, really important.
Right.
And if we can say, hey, I should listen to this person to see if what they have to say I might agree with or I might not agree with, but at least I might understand why they feel the way they feel. Instead, all we do is go, I feel what I feel and I'm right and you're wrong. When, look, there's more than one truth, and you can have 2, 3, 5, 10, 100 things all be true at the same time. It's just that we get so emotionally attached to our beliefs. I'm sure you've had the feeling in your body when someone says something and you feel this like, oh, and because it's just seeming like to attack you, right? Because it's going against your belief systems and something that you feel very strongly about. And guess what happens? You get shut down, because we also have a fear that what they're going to say could change your mind. And what would that mean? and oh my gosh, like, wow, shocking moment. You might expand your thoughts. You might expand who you are. Yeah. And yeah, so is that a good answer? I can keep going if you want.
It's a great answer. It's a great answer. It brings up way more questions, which I'll get to, but I don't want to get too far off my original question. So one of the things that you said in your intro, was that there's the one sensory we're not using. What is that?
We use it, but I don't think people are really aware of it as a sensory system. It's called interoception, and it's
Wait a second.
literally
Wait a second. Wait a second.
it
Interoception,
perception. So
like
if you yes,
interoception. Okay.
so a good way to think of it is interior. So there's exteroception, which is like getting sensory signals from the outside world. And then interoception is interior. And because if you type it into Google, it will autocorrect to interception. So
Mhm.
I like to say it's how we catch our feelings.
Okay.
And those feelings can be if you're hungry, if you're tired, if you need to use the restroom, even, these are all signals that are coming from the brain to tell us to take an action. So those are called homeostatic emotions.
Mhm.
They're the ones that keep us alive and healthy, right? And then we have affective emotions. And affective mean starting with an A, not effective,
Mhm.
affective.
Just already
And
asked.
affective emotion, yeah, affective emotions are the ones that tell us, if we're in love or all of these other feelings that we're born with. And so we can get those confused easily. We might be feeling sick or hungry and we take it as angry because we can't be conscious of or differentiate that feeling or recognize what's going on. Um, if when we have bad experiences, such as many of us have, or we're told, especially in the male generation, but I know plenty of women, to don't feel like that, don't feel this way.
Mhm.
Push your feeling. You're literally for years people have been taught to push their feelings down, and when you do that, you also push down the other kind of feelings too. If you think about the interoceptive sharpness gets dulled, and so when you develop this interoceptive awareness, you're more connected to those feelings, and the more connected you can be, the better you can get at identifying them. Like I said, when someone says something that like is threatening a belief of mine or something that I feel strongly about, that's my clue. I need to pay attention.
Right. I was watching an old replay. I don't even know if it was old. I shouldn't say an old replay. It was I can't think of the guy's name, but he played Kramer on Seinfeld. And
Oh yeah, I my dad was just Michael
yeah, you're
something.
close. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was on The View, and I was just saw a clip of this. I didn't see the whole show. And they were asking him, "Hey, you cancel culture, you kind of went off the rails." And he said 18 years ago, which is amazing. It was that long ago, but he went off the rails. And now, did you know that story at all?
He said something at a comedy show
So
that
he was at a comedy show, and some black guy in the audience started heckling him, telling him he wasn't funny, and he went on a racial tirade. I mean, like a full tilt racial tirade. And the reason why I bring it up is because it's exactly what you just said. He was saying, he apologized 1,000 times and all those type of things. But on The View, he was saying, they said, well, what happened? And he was like, I was afraid. And basically, whatever the guy was saying attacked the foundation of his existence. And the only way it came to him to defend himself was to attack back. And he said, if the guy's going to go low, I'm going to go lower. And it's just exactly what you were just saying about explaining the interception and what happened.
intero.
I'm close. See, I play sports, so an interception, interoception.
I'll,
So
I'll let it slide, but if you
I,
want to be really specific,
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I was actually hoping it was
I'm
a
here for
word.
you, Derick.
You know what? And I love you for it. I need people here for me. so I can
I'm here.
so you know it sounds like to me that not just your work, probably my work as well, is kind of like that one starfish at a time solution. Because I don't know on a mass scale how we get better. And when I say that, what I really mean is
Yeah.
that we work better together. Even if I was just thinking of an example, that I was trying to think of a non-racial example, and I was thinking about, politicians who vote for war but don't want their kids to go, and how other people have to send their kids to war and they don't have a choice. And so my point to that is that the perception is that, well, war is good, but not for my kid. And so how do we get to the truth, even though there's a multitude of truths, as you said, so that we all can do better? I don't think we all are going to win because not everybody wants to do the work. But from my
Yeah.
perspective, I'm thinking maybe I'm thinking too big. Maybe I'm thinking, what can we do? Because this whole show is about how people can get better and improve themselves to become 24K, so that then they can help their communities become better and be 24K, and then that community can help that neighborhood, that town, and so forth and so on. But what do you think? Because you're the guru.
They say you can't boil the ocean, but I disagree because it starts with one bubble
All right.
and then there's more bubbles. And I'm not looking to affect politicians.
Well, I just use
It's
that
just
as an
not my.
example.
No, wait, no. But I know, but I'm going to explain what I'm saying.
Okay.
When I can help the young person who is blowing up and just can't just struggles with their emotions
Mhm.
and it doesn't understand what they want or how they feel. So let's just go back to some fundamentals, why I feel like what I'm doing is very, very foundational for anything that you want to do, any work, coaching, self-improvement programs, whatever you want to do. I feel like this is so foundational because our emotions are influencing everything that we say, everything we think, everything we do. It's our decisions are based on it.
Right.
Our emotions tell us what we want and what we don't want, which direction to go. We really connect to our intuition, then we can rely on it to kind of give us that, I feel very strongly that this is what I should do. And yet not enough people that I encounter in life really are able to connect to the feelings
Mhm.
because they're afraid. And so if we start there, then you can get a little bit more objective looking. And that's what I'm looking for, is this type of critical thinking, so that you're critical not just of other people, but of yourself.
Right.
And I believe that when you get enough people who are doing that, then they will say no more, or I can talk to you. So if we can start talking together as communities and agreeing to disagree, doing what it's a term I took from a scientific or a research paper. It's called conversational receptiveness. So when we can be a receiver in conversations, then we can better conversations, and then we can force the change that we want at the top.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I really do. I mean, I can see historically. I love watching old documentaries, or documentaries, and I love watching different historical things. And one of the things that I was watching was talking about how, when someone discovered something, let's say electricity, or there was like when one person discovered it, four other people discovered it within days. So it was like, once a universal truth is out, more than one receiver's picking it up. And I think that's what you're saying. That's how we boil an ocean.
Yes, yes. And emotion is fundamental to being human, right? Like without emotion, life is flavorless, tasteless, colorless. It's just blah.
Yeah.
And we enjoy, trust me, from a woman who used to push a lot of her emotions down, my life has changed.
Mhm.
And people have noticed a change in me. And I experience love on such a deeper level that I couldn't before. And it's not because I did anything magical. It was just I let feelings in, and I was able to recognize or reframe my recipes for different emotions so that I can recognize them.
I
Then I
think
can cultivate them.
I think Andrew put a spell on
Ah, uh, you know what?
you. Look at
I
that
will tell
smile.
you,
Oh my
you
God.
know, I will tell you though that he, um, unlike my first husband, really let me be me.
Mhm.
And I think that is one of the greatest gifts that you can get. Like, he
Amazing.
takes my sassiness and he's like, sometimes I just need a day where we call snarky in a fond way. Some
Right.
people find snarky to be negative. We use snarky in a positive way. And he was like, today's a no snark day. But I will say, I do love him even more because he just lets me be me. He's supporting me in this crazy fantasy I have of spreading this idea around the world and getting people to just be comfortable with feeling. If you are not afraid of the feelings, then it's so powerful. And that's the problem.
I
We
love it.
experience more fear than love.
More fear than love, really.
I do. I think we experience more fear than love. And
Okay.
that's why so many people are insecure. When you think of fear, it's not just a fear of what's the government going to do, it's the fear of what people think of me.
Mhm.
It's the fear of, am I going to have this happen? Uh, I really think fear is way too common. And fear is real or imagined. And most often it's imagined. There was a study that they did with people who have severe anxiety disorder.
Mhm.
And they said, just write down your anxieties. Like, I'm afraid this is going to happen. This is going to happen. They wrote them down, like 97% or 90 plus percent did not happen.
Right.
And there's all kinds of studies to prove that that's true.
I've
So
heard
this
those.
is our brain predicting that things are going to happen, because that's what the brain does, right? The brain is a prediction machine. It's
Or
using our
it does it to
past,
protect us, right? It does it to protect us, or at least perceived protection.
but it's using our past experiences, right? So if
Absolutely.
we have beliefs that say this, then it's going to create that. So I'm all about like questioning those recipes and then changing them, because we have so many that were indoctrinated into us either by, and I don't mean indoctrinated in necessarily just a negative way, because good things were also indoctrinated into us, like good manners and all that other type of stuff. But we also have some beliefs that were put into our heads that might not be working for us today.
Right. I agree.
These thoughts, yeah. So it's all about challenging your recipes and discovering. That's this one of my favorite things, is to help people discover their recipes or what has to happen for them to feel a certain way. And when you start looking at that, then you really get to uncover, like, whoa, I had no idea that this was so impactful for me.
Right.
One of my very, very favorite things.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. That's such great insight and advice. So tell us about the books that you've written.
I Back after a divorce, I wrote a book called The Perfect Heart: Creating and Maintaining Love Life Balance. I I tell the story because it's a true story. I was literally laying on the floor of my condo, getting ready to move from San Diego to San Francisco, because I just needed to get out of town. I didn't want to be in the same town with my soon to be ex. And I was like, how did I get here? I and I laid on that floor from, well, it was daylight and it was night when I got up and said, okay, I got to take action. And I thought through all these things that had happened in my life. And that was when I got up. And so my initial thing was, okay, I, I was lacking balance in our relationship. So I wrote my first book. It's called The Perfect Heart: Creating and Maintaining Love Life Balance. But it just wasn't enough. I realized that controlling my thoughts or trying to manage my thoughts it wasn't working. And it was this combination of understanding perceptions and emotions that was explained to me when I read this book called How Emotions Are Made: The Secret Life of the Brain. And that book really, really set me on a journey of understanding interoception, understanding how perceptions work, consciousness. That's one of my big things, how memories are made. That too is just incredible, because when you think about it, the memories that we use today could be based on things that weren't true. And I have a whole story in my book about this Buddhist monk and how, we predict things that in situations that might not be true, but they come away as truth only because we didn't question it enough. We didn't look at the situation more closely, or what I say is take a second bite, take a second taste of a situation to make sure that you're getting it right. So lots of things I could talk about, but that was what led to Yucky, Yummy, Savory, Sweet, Understanding the Flavors of Emotions, which is my second book.
Excellent. I love it. I mean, I don't know how big of a project your books were, but I wrote one and I was I was exhausted. I was like, this is too much. So congratulations to you. And people can go to Kim Korte. It's Kim, KORTE.com to get more information. So I wish that we had days to go over this and days to talk about this, because we could just, she's in Napa. We could just grab a bottle and some
I know.
crackers and just talk about this insatiably, because we are, as men, are taught to suppress our feelings. Men aren't supposed to cry. Yep. Men shouldn't worry about these different things. Women, you shouldn't. So, kids. So, and your comment when you're discussing your book or explaining your book, it's just so spot on. I remember as a 21, 22-year-old, I was a manager in a retail store, recent graduate of college. I looked young. I was young. And as a manager, people did not, 6'3", people still didn't take me seriously. And so I swear to you, I went out and bought a pair of clear, these are real, but I bought a pair of clear glasses and I put on my dad's wedding ring. My dad was a plumber, so he never wore jewelry. I put on my dad's wedding ring, and I swear to you, the next day, everybody treated me differently. They thought I was smarter and I was married.
You know what?
Their perceptions.
And everybody thought I was dumb. I am serious. Blonde hair, because I'm a natural blonde, blue eyes, and busty. So it was a recipe for, she can't be too bright. Cannot be too bright. And it's true. It's like that's why we have to fight against stereotypes. Being, blonde or tall and handsome, it comes with certain expectations, and we are experiencing those recipes and breaking them. That's why, all the time. It just happened this morning. I saw something about some guy who was missing, and he looked a certain way, and I just quickly came to an assumption about this person. And I'm like, Kim, what are you doing? And I gave grace to whatever his situation was and stopped with my assumptions. It happens. That's how we're built. It's efficient for the brain. Now, I know you have to go, so I won't keep going on, but I do want to add one thing, just one last thing.
No, we're not.
I just started a podcast called Flavors of Emotions, and hopefully you'll be a guest. But I just started it. I'm filming my third episode on every other week for now until I get that swing of things.
We can get this on Apple and Spotify and all the places, or where can we access it?
Yeah, if you go to flavorsofemotions.com, you can pick. It's on YouTube, Spotify, but to pick your player, you can just go to flavorsofemotions.com, and you have links to everything where I am.
Okay, so I have another question for you, which I said I wasn't going to ask you, but I just got to ask at this point.
Okay.
How did all this happen? I mean, it sounds like this was not something that you started at 20. So how did
No.
you, I know in your bio there was a defining moment or point. What was it?
Yeah, it was that moment when I was on the condo floor
I was
and I said, I have to make a change. Like,
Mhm.
I've got to figure this out. So my profession, my background is in managing projects. I implement systems. I go in and help people or companies improve processes and procedures and provide guidance. So I need logic and I need steps. Like I got to know how things work. If there's a magic trick, great. I want to know, how did you do that? And I needed to understand how my emotions can get under control. And what I learned is that you can't. There's so many things that play into our emotions. It's genetics, it's environment, it's hormone levels, it's lots of things. So it wasn't about trying to figure out what I couldn't control. It was trying to figure out what I could control. And this seemed to be a very clear, repeatable process. And I even have like a process flow in my book because it's so important to at least have something that you can follow to say, okay, I'm I'm feeling this way. I don't understand why, or I do understand why.
Mhm.
And being able to distinguish your feelings. Just one last example, if you don't mind,
Not at all.
is that if you if you were to take 3 different tubs of vanilla ice cream, all 3 different makers, okay, you could taste the first one. It might be very rich. You can tell this one's a little bit more expensive, really good cream. It's very rich and kind of luscious tasting. And then the flavors of excuse me, the flavors of the second one might be a little bit more runny, maybe have a little bit more of an icy taste, um, maybe more high in sweetness. And then the flavors of the last one, it could be a very strong vanilla that you're like a Madagascar vanilla or Mexican vanilla, something that's not very typical in an ice cream that you normally get in a store.
Right.
They're all vanilla ice cream, right?
Mhm.
And most people would just taste those ice creams and say, oh yeah, vanilla, vanilla, vanilla. I'm talking about noticing the different flavors in each tub. And when you can do that, like a chef does with food, or a sommelier does with wine, then you are better able to distinguish situations where there's a tub of ice cream in your life and it's irritating you. But you can tell the difference between this situation and another situation because you are connected to how you feel,
I love
those flavors of those emotions.
that is a great analogy, and it's a wonderful one. I love it. That's perfect. Man, I feel so fulfilled right now. I shouldn't say this as a guy, but I'm going to say it as a guy, and I'm pretty intuitive. I work on it, I practice it. And so I'm encouraged that other men will hear this and start to dive into their perceptions and why they're having these perceptions. They'll dive into their emotions, they'll address their feelings, and they'll do a little homework on self to figure out what it takes. So thank you so much for your time, Kim. Hold on one quick sec for me, would you? All right, folks, you heard it. I can't say enough about her work. Sometimes and I know it takes a traumatic event in our lives to wake us up to our pure and true calling. You know, Kim has tapped into hers after an event that forced her to want to be better, to understand what was going on. And my statement to you is don't wait. Don't wait for a tragic event. Don't wait for an seemingly unsurmountable event. You know what? Do your work right now. Go to kimkorte.com, check out her books, go check out the podcast, start diving in, because when she said foundational, that means critically necessary. That means that anything you put on top of that is going to stand if you handle that first. When you don't, you can build an amazing life and have it all fall apart because you can't handle it. So I encourage you to go check her out. Listen, we're all here to help each other build a better community. I like to call mine the 24K Life community. It's a space where we honor excellence and truth. And you know what? Now we honor excellence, truth, and our feelings. I'm Derick Gant. Be your best. Bring your best. Leave nothing to chance.